Anthony, so good to see you after being on the road for 2 weeks. How you doing, buddy?
Tell you, I saw you at the lodging conference, but you didn't say hello to me. You ignored me.
That's because you were not
I'm
there.
Anthony, welcome to No Vacancy Lines. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Hey, everybody, welcome to the one and only No Vacancy Live. That's Anthony Malcurie. I'm Glenn Hausman. Thank you so much for spending time with us today. Boy, the last couple of weeks have been a whirlwind, Anthony. Being at the lodging conference last week, getting to host some stuff with the good folks over at Red Roof the week before, and taking a minute to celebrate the Jewish New Year there. How are you, buddy? What's going on?
I actually went to my first break fast.
Yeah.
On what was that, Saturday night?
Yeah, Saturday night. Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of bagels.
Yeah, I was just about to ask you what bagel you had, and curious, did they have whitefish as well as lox? And what about some herring? Did you have
They had
herring?
it all. They had it all.
Right.
I had pumpernickel with cream cheese, with nuts and cream cheese. Very good. But I also went to the service because my daughter's boyfriend's a cantor soloist. So I actually went to one of the, I went to the shul and went through the, and it was beautiful. They sang like 50 songs. I mean,
Wow.
yeah. I mean, you don't really commit.
Dude, seriously, you Christians you knock it out like 45 minutes. You're in.
And I was asking them. I said, "Where's the logbook? Where do I sign up?"
Well, these services take hours, and then rabbis are like guys who wanted to be stand-up comedians, but didn't want to go that route. So they do their sermons, as the Christians would call it, and they just go on for forever.
This rabbi's amazing. He's just an interesting story. But anyway,
All right, so let's on. I do want to say one thing, Anthony. You spent more time in shul than me for the holidays, because I actually did not go at all. But last week
you
was
went to shul, it would burn down. That's why.
Yeah, Well, last week I was at the Logic Conference. I want to thank and congratulate Harry, Jamer, Liz, Wolf, Brent, Tinter, and the entire team on an incredibly executed event. Just when you think it can't get any better, they somehow pull it off. And that's even with me hosting one of the general session panels, Anthony. And I had so much fun doing that. I want to thank our good friend, Rachel Humphrey, for this idea. Instead of me doing, hey, what's the state of the business? All we did was talk about leadership. How did Liam Brown, the president of Marriott in America and Canada, become Liam Brown? How did Jeff Wagner, the CEO of Outrigger? How did Zach Garib, the president of Red Roof, become those people? So it was a whole lot of fun.
I love that.
Yeah. All right. So today, Anthony, I want to talk a little bit about guest experience. I know that you're spending a lot of time focused on that right now. And our guest today is Ashley Ewing Parrott from AEP Consulting, and she does branding, and she also does all sorts of great stuff on helping create experiences for hotels. Ashley, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm well. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really happy to see you here today. Anthony, I saw her when I was doing some interviews at the Southern Lodging Summit. So you're out there, you're in the mix. You said you missed the lodging conference this year, but I bet you like getting out and networking with people in person.
Yeah, absolutely. I was really bummed to miss lodging this year. I've heard from you and several others, friends in the industry, that it was one of the best they've attended. So excited to attend again next year. And yeah, I love to make the conference circuit work as much as possible. Our next will be BDNY. I'm very excited for that in November.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'm going to make it to that. I'm scheduled to actually be home, but I might be too tired. So we'll see. So, Anthony, she helps companies with creating, on-property experience and stuff, right? Interior design, procurement, affiliation and market positioning guidance, and that sort of thing. And I think it might be fun to start off with this first question. Ashley, where are we right now in traditional, typical hotels being able to create guest experiences, particularly if they're working within the confines of a traditional brand?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think experiences, and you probably heard this term more times than you can count, are the new commodity. They are what are driving rate. Service has become table stakes, right? Good service
Right.
clean experience, hot shower fast. Those are table stakes in the hotel business now.
Mhm.
The only way to kind of level up and to attract more guests, to build more loyalty is through genuine connection and experience driven stays. So I think definitely within the constraints of a brand that can be done, because a lot of the great brands out there have constructs for kind of the experiences that are quintessential to them. But in addition to that, there's so much fun to be had in the independent and soft branded space, in creating experiences that are either hyper local or very centric to your brand.
I was just in a brand, I'll just mention the Graduate brand in Princeton this week. And you walk in, of course, we passed it. My friend, oh, that's the new Graduate Hotel. And he kept on going. I go, excuse me, you got the hotel guy in the car. I got to get out.
Yeah.
So I think I jump out and I jumped in the lobby, and you immediately feel like you're on the campus of the university. You immediately feel connected. You are emotionally connected, and they do it in the greatest way. I really believe that. But what's happening when you have, and we talked about this a couple of years ago, where we said Graduate's going to be eaten up by one of the big brands because they do such a great job. It makes sense. Well, how do you position your company and yourself, whereas all these big brands are taking all these great independent hotel brands and bringing them into the bigger picture? How does that affect your company?
Ooh, interesting.
That's actually an incredible question, and I think I'm uniquely suited to answer it, as my most recent corporate job was the global brand lead for Tribute Portfolio within Marriott International. So literally lived through this exact example.
I had no idea you did that. That's really cool.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience. I learned a ton having come from the private developer side.
Let me just explain to people out there real quick. Tribute is a collection brand. So the
Correct.
more independent minded properties that are looking for soft branding instead of the hard branding with rigid rules. Sorry, Ashley. Please.
No, exactly right, Glenn, and thank you for that context. So, when Starwood and Marriott merged, there were some duplications in efforts, right? Because the two companies were really trying to go head to head.
Right.
And
Because that was right at the time when the collection brand started to take off, and a lot of them have been recently introduced.
that's exactly right. Tribute Portfolio was less than a year old under
Right.
Starwood's umbrella. Yeah. So when it came in, and as I understand it, was originally created by Starwood to compete with Autograph Collection, another upper upscale brand of independent hotels with the support of the reservations network, loyalty, et cetera, et cetera. So it was an interesting experience to try to figure out how to position Tribute Portfolio within Marriott's existing portfolio brands. But to answer your question, how do we prevent that from happening and how does that impact my business? It's a huge red flag when a major corporation takes on a portfolio of independent hotels. We're seeing it happen a lot right now with, the Hilton acquisitions, the Hyatt acquisitions of some of these kind of mainstay names in our industry within the independent hotel space. And Graduate has been leading experience-driven design and hyper-local connection for a long time. I mean, it was a game changer when they entered into these, college adjacent, university adjacent markets and really made sure that that was the center of every narrative they were telling. It's difficult when you're steering a large ship and you're trying to issue standards and you're trying to make sure that we're creating a level of experience for the guest that is continuous across all hotels in a portfolio, to not then micromanage and not to hold on too tight to some of these independent hotels where they lose their ability to really create those hyper local experiences. So I think at least within Tribute Portfolio, which I can speak to firsthand, our effort was to provide a construct, meaning we have 3 brand pillars: sincere service, vibrant social scenes, and captivating design. How you choose to interpret that for your property is up to you. And we're going to make suggestions and we're going to say, hey, that's really great, push that further. But essentially, the team's responsibility was to protect the autonomy of these collection of brands as opposed to a branded collection.
Yeah. Anthony.
Yeah. And so how does that affect your business?
Yeah. So my business was born of the pandemic and of that experience working for Tribute Portfolio and private developer. It means that I have to be much more aware of a lot of different standards now, right? So my clients are paying me. They're expecting me to have an inside look and understanding at both Hilton, Hyatt, Marriott standards, but also then the standards of creating a beautiful, enigmatic space with great experience and an independent brand.
So tell, for the audience that doesn't know, how does your company work? So I have a new hotel or an existing hotel, and how do you come on, and when do you come on?
Yeah, great. So I can come on really at any step in the process, but earlier is always better. You may call me with a piece of dirt or a property that is potentially an adaptive reuse or even a conversion, and say, hey, I just really want to create something special. We'll look at the market together. We'll analyze the flags that may be available. I'm often going to recommend soft brand or independent because that's pretty squarely the space that I work in. We're going to do a ton of market research, early concepting. My job is to get in the heads of my owners and really get crystal clear on their vision for their property. That helps me build a team that is better suited for their needs. We do that then. We build the team. They come in and the creative team reports through me to ownership. So whether that's ID, art consultants, food and beverage consultants, branding agencies, et cetera. We then do the full design development, creative direction, et cetera, for 12 to 18 months. And then we kick off construction. At that point, I typically hand off to a construction manager and we start working more focused on strategy. So then once the hotel is open, how is it positioned? What are the experience touch points that we're working with? What are the marketing efforts? What's the vanity site look like? So it is really a 360-degree perspective of beginning to end of the development process.
Yeah, you're really bringing together that whole picture. Yeah. Anthony?
And that's, my company does a lot of that as well. And there's nothing better than that. There's nothing better than sitting with the drawings, right? And then bringing it to life and then really infusing it. But you said something about table stakes. That service is table stakes. Now, you know as well as I do, right? You travel a lot. And I don't care where you travel. You either get bad service or you get, in a really nice hotel, you get
Indifferent?
not indifferent, but almost program, like they're just reading the program.
Yeah.
And very rarely, actually I checked into a hotel last night, a beautiful 5-star hotel. And the person that checked me in did a really good job, but the person down her friend at the next terminal, 2 terminals over, did an insanely good job. They, like, you wouldn't know she had any script. She was just completely herself. And she was making me laugh. I was listening to her. She was making me laugh. But that's few and far between. So when you say service is table stakes, it really is, but it isn't anymore. It's, and because what does everybody say, right? Everybody says people don't care anymore. People this, people that, people. And that, even the people that do care and the people that are great, they're not like when we came up in this business, right? When we came up in this business, is if I got to work at one of these 5-star hotels, filling salt shakers for 3 cents an hour, I would do it because I'm surrounded by this incredible, even in the best hotels, even with people that are engaged, they're not really looking for a hotel career. So it's really not a question. It's more like when you're developing this, are you having a problem with people understanding what you're trying to develop at the management level?
So that's a really interesting perspective. And I think we could have the labor conversation with any hotelier for hours and hours and hours, because it does have a lot of unique challenges at the moment, apathy amongst associates being one of them. One of the things that we really focus a lot on with our branding agency in particular, that we then bring to life through the hiring process is an associate persona. Right? How does our associate communicate our brand to the guest? And what are some of those kind of core descriptors of that type of person? Because we then take that description and we hand that off to HR and they use that as the preliminary filter when they're hiring associates. So if we know, I'll use the Wayback, for example, which is a roadside motel conversion in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, that we just finished in November of last year. And I'm very happy to say congratulations to my client. It made Time's 2024 World's Greatest Places list. A roadside
hotel. Listen, for those people who haven't been to Pigeon Forge, Tennessee,
which is I know
it is one of the coolest places in the world. It's the first time I had moonshine. It was pretty.
The rooms might be getting too expensive though. It's so popular.
It's a unique market. So we created a kind of cheekier personality for this associate, understanding that This hotel is 1960s, 70s Palm Springs inspired. Pigeon Forge is a quirky and weird eclectic market. We want people who are comfortable in their weirdness, in the kitsch, who can embrace it, but still embody a sense of cool. Well, how hard was that going to be to find in a market as small as, Pigeon Forge? But we did it. And we used it as a recruiting tool. It helped us find the right staff. And I'm happy to say, I've been in the last couple of weeks, but they've had very little turnover because we then used that in our training with associates. We empowered them to figure out their connection to this brand, to take a sense of authorship and ownership of it and embrace that, like embrace your weird a little bit, right? Our tagline is normal is no fun.
Right.
During the check-in process. So we don't overly script things. We allow people the latitude to be themselves. We get them kind of bought in and evangelized on the subject of their brand and then let them do what they want to do with it. Now, I recognize that in brands like, say, Ritz-Carlton, that's much less easy to do because there's a very simple cut and dry standard of black and white, ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen. And so the way that they have to approach guests is very different. But something interesting that Ritz-Carlton does, they provide a stipend to every associate that they can use at their own discretion they're empowered to help a guest.
Right.
So, like that I think is the biggest thing is creating authorship, ownership, autonomy for your associates within the brand, making sure that they understand that they are valued, that they are our first line of defense. What I have found is where you experience more apathetic associates is typically where you have more apathetic management.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to say hallelujah and I want to get up and sing because there's a lot to unpack there. And this is what you see a lot of. You see the development of the brand. You see the development of the space. You walk in and in the hotel I was in this weekend, you literally, and they did a great job from an associate standpoint, but literally like you can't get away from the brand and what they designed, right? So if that associate doesn't understand it, it's glaring. And too many times I've walked in where you're sitting at the table or I'm sitting at the table and we're building the brand and we're helping them and we're putting in the service standard, but they don't go as far as trying to find people that can relate to the brand. And that what you just said is very unique and incredibly important that you gotta go and find people a little weird. And maybe people that wouldn't be able to fit in the Ritz-Carlton mode or a different hotel mode. But here, it's perfect because you're embracing their weirdness, right? But so many people don't. And that's why someone like you is so critically important. An owner spends years getting the financing, years finding the space, years finding the branding, getting a management company. And then they go ahead and they go, well, the brand, we just had this experience recently, the brand has got my back. Okay. 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 But they also got 1,600 other people's backs.
Exactly.
Right? So you need not having someone like you or a company that comes in and really ties it all together. Especially you, because you've been in the inside, is you may as well burn your money. And so just don't, like when I'm sitting at a table with you, when I heard you said, we have to go out and we have to make part of our recruitment process, the brand process of finding weird people, finding unique people, finding people that maybe never been able to help before, and they always felt like they were the outsider. We need those people. Like that one sentence probably saved that person thousands and thousands of dollars of turnover. And so it was really refreshing to hear your perspective.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And now it's my turn to say amen, say it again. What's really interesting is there's a point, having worked on the private development side of things as well, where owners and developers almost think the hard work is done. The loan is closed.
Right.
Sheet is signed. The contractor is on board. The ID team is plugging away and they're like, shoot, I can breathe a sigh of relief. And then halfway through the process, the kind of, oh crap moment happens where they're like, all this stuff is like fallen through the cracks because there's not one central person any longer responsible for making sure that every party is not only communicating on milestone, schedule, budget, which is a great PM, But that creative direction piece, which is like, why are we making this decision? How does this value engineering choice impact guest experience? How does it impact our brand positioning? How could it potentially impact our ADR? Because everyone's working in silos. So I think people like us who work in this consulting space are really charged with maintaining that constant communication and collaboration, because it's so much.
But you know what? To call us consultants kind of puts us in a bag with a lot of people, right? And I don't really call myself a consultant. I call you a consultant because we have built this from the ground up, right? So we just happen to be in a different position. But consultant is like, they're going to give you advice. We know if you push this button, this will happen. You don't push this button, that will happen. It's not my interpretation. It's not what I think will happen. This will happen.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't have a good relationship with the director of housekeeping, director of front office, you're going to have bad comment cards. That's going to happen. It's not open for discussion. If that communication, those stand-ups aren't done. And so it's just inspiring to see that there are people out there that have been in the business for a long time that really, really hold that and really, really bring that to your point of the communication. There's a hotel I won't name and a city I won't name, but we all know it, that just crapped the bed because they had a vision of every part of the hotel was run by a different entity, and it exploded.
Danger.
Absolutely. What's that?
Danger.
It imploded. And we on this podcast, I remember after we had a conversation on the podcast, I told Glenn, I was like, that sounds great, but what?
Well, congratulations to the new resort leader who is reintegrating all the details.
Right. You know, I had a colonel once say to me, I want one ass to kick, right? And I don't care what company, what hotel, what football team, what person's got to be fully in charge. And then when you're leave as a consultant, then that general manager is fully in charge. But if through the process, every 25, it's like the development person for the hotel company, that's the person that everybody's paying attention to for 2 years, right? They're getting the loan, they're getting the space, they're getting the most important person, right? And then they got to hand that over to someone like yourself, or it's going to fall apart. And it falls apart quickly.
It does.
Yeah. So, actually, you said something really interesting in that whole last section, recruiting process, where you put the personality into that. I'm curious because you said you're getting work out of it. I'm wondering if people see that, because if I'm like, we all know I'm a weird, quirky personality, but if I was a weird, quirky personality looking to get into a hotel, I might see that and go, oh, wait, I was self-selecting out of this business because it never occurred to me that they would take someone like me. So maybe that's why you found so many people in Pigeon Forge. Maybe they were just Pigeon Forge. There were people out there who never thought they could have a future in hospitality, but you were able to connect the dots for them.
I think that, so we helped create the framework for the recruitment process. We didn't lead the recruitment process, but through the branding process, you're creating a personality of not only a guest, the hotel brand itself, but also the associate. We then take that and distill it down into some key points that might describe an ideal hire. Yeah. We hand that off to operations, and we suggest that, and in this case, we actually did a full brand immersion training for every associate once they were onboarded. So they really became immersed in the brand. But we gave that to ownership and said, hey, think outside the box.
Right.
Maybe these people don't need to be seasoned hoteliers. Your general manager needs to be a seasoned hotelier. There are some levers that need to be pushed and pulled on a daily basis that they need to understand, right? Housekeeping needs to be probably a hospitality professional, understanding standards, et cetera, et cetera. But food and beverage folks, front desk folks, we can train POS.
Right. The ones that are having the meaningful interactions with customers on a daily basis.
Exactly. So if you encounter someone at the grocery store who has a great personality, hand them your business card and say, I'd love to stay in touch. I'm opening a hotel. Because human interaction does not come easily to everyone. And I think generationally, it's getting harder and harder, right?
But if you find, like, my daughter is in graduate school and she's working in a restaurant as a waitress, never worked outside of volleyball camps. She's played volleyball in college. now she got in our local community. She's working as a waitress, and she's going to graduate school. She loves it. I'm in a restaurant having dinner with my wife and maybe my other kids, and people come up to me and goes, "Is that your daughter?" And my daughter will come over. She puts dirty dishes on our table just to annoy me. And she comes over, but she's literally making the entire restaurant hysterical. And people come over and go, "Can you train me how to raise my daughter?" I was like, "Listen, that's just her personality." And she knows nothing about, anything in a restaurant. One day I said, "Where's the monkey dish?" She didn't know what the monkey dish was, one of those little small dishes. And so she goes, but she loves it because that's her personality. She's an outgoing person, and she likes making people laugh. And nowadays, we if you're not thinking that way, you have a problem because don't. And first of all, a lot of people don't have the skills that they need to come into the hotel business. The only skill you need to go into the hotel business is you have to want to make people happy. You don't have to like people; you have to make them happy, and that's the only skill you need. But it really is upsetting that when all the owners put all this money in and they do all the design, and then we just put people because we can't find anybody behind the counter. 99% of the hard work is done. The easiest thing to do is smile and hand somebody a key and say breakfast at 7 a.m. and have one or two sentences. That's the easiest part of the entire equation. But for some reason, that becomes the hardest part.
It's true. And, two things I just want to touch on that you covered. Her personality, her ethos as a human could not be taught. So when people come to tell you, how do I train my daughter? How do I raise my daughter to be like that? You may have empowered her. You may have helped to build her confidence, but you didn't teach her to be a pleasant human being, to enjoy interacting with other people. That's just innate. So we need to look for people with that innate skill and help them grow it. We can train it, we can polish it, but we can't teach that enthusiasm or commitment to making people happy.
Listen, I can improve, I can help you find your passion if you were raised right. But if you're a broken person coming in, no matter what training I give you, until you swear yourself away, I can't, there's nothing I can do for you, right? And there's a lot of broken people that come in and are great. But if you're bringing all of that in with you, like when I found the hotel business at an early age, and I had a challenging, maybe first 18 years, and immediately I was inspired by it. It was like, this is my safe haven. But when people don't get that, there's nothing you can do, to your point, to get them on track. There's nothing.
Help grow your confidence, right? We can help make you feel empowered, feel comfortable, feel seen, appreciated, understood. We can do those things. We can create that culture within our properties and within our management companies that make people feel at home. But if they don't internally have the skill or the desire to then make our guests feel at home, that is the disconnect. So if you don't like people, hospitality is not your business, right? Period. You should go do something online, data entry, or, something that you don't have to interact with folks on a day-to-day basis. But if you enjoy being around people, being of service.
The Martians just came down and got her, Glenn.
I was going to say, if you don't like people, then just go into the banking and ownership side of things,
Yeah.
I'm not going to offend my friends in development. Some of them may lack social skills.
Listen, I think we're turning the corner. I really believe we are turning the corner. I'm starting to see it a little bit, that young people or people changing careers coming into our industry are starting to see how cool this industry is, and you can make a little bit more money than you used to be able to make. And in some areas, you can make a lot more money. I'm starting to see it turn the corner. But I'm starting to see, not to make this a whole thing about employees, but I'm also starting to see mid-level managers give up. And mid-level managers say, well, if I hold their standard, they're going to leave. When they stay, you just lost a good person that's standing next to them. So let them stay, and let those 2 or 3 mediocre people stay, and say goodbye to that superstar that's about to shine. Because they're gone.
Right.
Because they're going to find a job. They're gone. And that is what I see that we have to fight against. Not so much changing behaviors, but we need to, when we do find that superstar, because again, they were few and far between like they were when I was growing up, that's the person you have to make sure you polish. And then if they have to work a little harder because you just promoting somebody else to customer, they're okay with that. But they'd rather work harder than work with somebody that's bringing them down.
Yeah. Awesome. Ashley, we're almost out of time. So give me one thing outside of people that a traditional select service hotel could do to make a better connection with guests. The struggle that I see is they're working within this limitations and they're all delivering clean, comfortable rooms. But a lot of times that leads up to a fungible, if not forgettable, experience. So how do you separate yourself to be remembered in that case?
That's really difficult. It's
know.
one of the reasons I don't work in branded select service hotels, because the latitude is short, right? The length of time you have and guest experience you have or guest interaction you have is limited typically to check in, check out.
If that anymore.
Yeah, perhaps transactional in between if something is needed. Technology is stepping in for text for towels and things like that. So mobile key. So we're even losing that connection. I think the power of handwritten notes is there still. It holds true. If I get a handwritten note in any hotel I stay in, it comes home with me.
Yep.
I don't throw it away. It comes home with me. I open my backpack up later. I take a look at that. I'm like, that's a really nice touch. And when I go to fill out my review, I'm sure I mention it. So I think those little touches that we can make that don't cost anything, which remind people that there are humans there to support you if you need them, is going to be important.
That's great. All right, Anthony's got something here.
Last night, I stayed in the hotel, and I got a handwritten note from the president of the company, and I took it out of the envelope, put it in my thing, and I have a folder. And now, if you type it, I tear it up and throw it in the garbage. Like, if it's typed, I want a handwritten note. If you're handwriting that note with your signature on it, as busy as you are as a general manager or president of a major resort, I am honoring that, and I'm making sure I keep that in my file. But if you just type it and you'll even sign it,
I will say,
I'm not taking the 2 ounces in my backpack.
Anthony, I have yet, and I'm sure you're the same, have yet to stay at Resorts World in Las Vegas without getting multiple handwritten thank you notes for staying.
Listen, Shannon McCollum, I hope you're listening, and if you are, you're crazy. I walk in sometimes at 2:00 in the morning, okay, and guess who's greeting me in the middle of the lobby?
Yeah,
Shannon, the vice president of operations, is greeting me at 2:00 in the morning. So yeah, she takes me to a whole new
right. And nothing against Anthony. It's not because he's Anthony. It's because he's a guest of the hotel. And I see a lot of people writing these notes and to all the guests, because I see them on LinkedIn and Facebook all the time. So it really is making good connections with customers.
Agreed.
Yeah. Ashley, how can we learn more about you?
Oh, thank you for asking. So both of my websites are LinkedIn, aepconsulting.com or thesaturdaycrowd.com. Would love to keep the conversation going on any of those platforms.
What's the Saturday Crowd?
Thank you for asking. This Saturday Crowd is the branding studio that I co-founded with my business partner, Emily Lewis. We are a group of like-minded folks who enjoy working with thoughtful, creative, and curious clients to build beautiful, compelling brands for any hospitality business.
Wow, love it.
Awesome. Ashley, thank you. You're the best.
Nice talking
Really appreciate it. Thanks. Hey, and if you guys are interested in building a hotel, constructing a hotel, go check out Hotel Spaces. That's going to be at the end of October in Palm Springs. I'm going to be doing a speech over there. Go check them out, Hotel Spaces events. I'll also be at the Hospitality Show in San Antonio. You going to that one this year?
No.
Okay. Well, come see me at the Hospitality Show, and hey, I'll have a picture of Anthony with me so we can feel.
I think no. I have a prior commitment, but
I understand. I feel like you have a speaking gig or something at that.
You never know.
Particular time. You never do know. One thing I do know is you're going to want to subscribe to our podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Get them there, and of course, watch our shows live whenever we do the live shows. Sorry, we're not on a regular basis these days. LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I don't know why I still got a Twitter thing here when it's X, and I'm not even on it anymore. So don't find me on X because I'm X on X. So everybody, thanks so much for being here. Remember, you've got one life, so blaze on, eh?
Be kind to yourself.
See you later.